Hi, my name is Henry Lee. I've been a biology and anatomy physiology teacher here at Dublin Jerome High School for 13 plus years. I was asked by a former student of mine, Melanie Arnold, to share with you a little bit about how I use technology in my classroom, and so here goes.
It definitely allows us to take this to the next level instead of having to stick with something that's stagnant and not being able to zoom in or click on any of these terms that don't define themselves or access any other videos or even hear how it's pronounced. I can simply go to the app and the app will do it for me. As you can see, most of our classrooms here at Dublin Jerome have been equipped with something called a smart board. One of my personal devices here, this is just a simple iPad. One of the cool things about the iPads and the new iOS systems is that they have something called AirPlay. So if I click on AirPlay here, it gives me an option to select a couple of different computers. And what I've done is I've selected the computer, my teacher computer here, that is plugged up into the smartboard. So now I can project whatever is on my iPad onto the smartboard that you see in front of you. So what I'm going to simply do is go down to one of the apps that I have, and I often use this in anatomy. This is an essential anatomy, and so I can ask a student to take the iPad and identify certain bone structures, muscle structures, and so they can simply zoom in, and we can use it as an assessment tool. We can use it as a learning tool to introduce different structures of the bones or of the human body, and just another type of technology software that we use is by, again, mirroring this. I'm going to show you on the iPad here. I can simply hide the other bones, and so this shows me how this articulates all the other bones in the body, and we can go through all the different bone structures as well. This app also has available on it all of the different muscle layers, so I can add on a couple different muscle layers here, and we can subtract those, arteries and nerves here, connective tissue, respiratory and digestive system, etc. So we can use this as a very helpful tool, especially when compared to your standard anatomy book. So that's a little tutorial about how we use essential anatomy in combination with the software and the hardware hooked up to the computer using AirServer and our smartboard.
So another tool that I've picked up from doing youth ministry for the past 10 years is one of my favorite games called HeadsUp. It might look familiar to you here. So if I click on here and I go to HeadsUp, what I've done is I've customized a couple decks. You can see I have an anatomy deck, and I also have a biology deck. So if I click on the anatomy deck, this is going to allow us to create our own cards. So I can customize all of these, and the chapter 5, the skeletal system is what I have up here, and I can edit my cards, and you can see all the different bones up here. So I'm going to give you a little tutorial on how my students use this as a learning tool and as a review tool to get ready for their assessments.
Spinal canals, lacrimal bone.
So the last tool that I'd like to introduce you to is something called AZspace. We've recently acquired several of these machines that enable you to take 3D glasses and manipulate and dissect specimens via virtual reality. So the example that I'm going to use today is we'll take a heart and throw it into the portal, and it'll bring up this screen. I can take my pen, and as long as I click on the specimen itself, it'll enable me to zoom in, to zoom out, to actually feel the heartbeat at the tips of my fingers. You can also see the EKG in the very background, so you can actually see what the heart is doing on an electronic basis. And this enables you to experiment with specimens without using disposable specimens and wasting the money on that from year to year to year. You can see on the right-hand side, I'm clicking on a couple of the different structures, and it'll identify, highlight which of those structures I am selecting. It'll enable me to hide some of those structures so I can see inside of the heart, and fade some of those so I can see the actual valves opening and closing. I'm now taking a video camera, and on the top right hand part of the screen you can see where that camera is actually going into the vessels of the heart, and it enables you to see all the valves that are opening and closing inside, and even see the tissue that is contracting on the inside of the heart. So, of course, a couple of different problems that we've run into is obviously the funds. In order to acquire these machines, they are pretty expensive. In order to run them, you have to have training for not only the students, but for your instructors. The software needs to be updated, and sometimes when that gets out of date, then it's going to eventually cost to maintain those machines and the software itself. And some of these are contingent on whether you have internet service, or obviously when the technology is functional. If that isn't working, then obviously we have had to come up with plan Bs and plan Cs for something that we thought would substitute for specimens, but now doesn't work because we have lack of a network that is consistent. So those are a couple ways that I've used to integrate technology into my classroom, and the challenges that come with the territory. Just wanted to thank you for bearing with me. I know that was a little longer than the 3 minutes. And thanks to Melanie, to this day, you're still one of the hardest working students that I've ever taught. So have a great day, good luck, and God bless.